You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
This is Hans Landa, arguably the most terrifying character ever to happen to the cinema. And the opening chapter of Inglourious Basterds is a forensic masterclass in the psychology of suspense and the terror this man can project. By manipulating spatial blocking, weaponizing everyday props, and exploiting the illusion of control, Quentin Tarantino constructs a cinematic trap that suffocates both the characters and the viewer. Here is how a polite conversation over a glass of milk becomes one of the most lethal interrogations in film history. Before Landa even addresses his victim, he establishes dominance through the calculated isolation of his target. By commanding his soldiers to stay behind, Landa subverts the expected visual of brute military force. He replaces the physical threat of an armed squad with the psychological terror of an intimate, one-on-one intellectual duel. The suspense here relies on Hitchcock's bomb under the table. The audience and LaPadite both know the danger, but Landa's dismissal of his guards creates a false sense of a level playing field. Landa's physical micro-choices contrast sharply with his imposing uniform. He crosses the distance with a smile and offers his hand, projecting a mask of extreme politeness. He does not demand entry. He politely requests an invitation. This forces LaPadite into the role of a gracious host rather than a captured prisoner. By making LaPadite actively participate in his own interrogation, Landa establishes a psychological framework where the farmer must maintain the facade of normalcy, effectively tying his own noose. Landa weaponizes charm to test the structural integrity of the LaPadite family's performance. Taking the daughter's hand and kissing it is a deliberate physical invasion of personal space, executed under the guise of chivalry. The unscripted, lingering hold on the girl's hand establishes a subtle physical dominance. Landa's mention of rumors serves a dual purpose, superficially complimenting the daughter's beauty, while subliminally reminding LaPadite that the SS has been actively extracting secrets about him in the village. The forensic visual of the milk glass is central to Landa's psychological warfare. Wine is a social lubricant, an adult beverage shared between equals. By rejecting the wine and demanding milk, Landa infantilizes the situation and strips LaPadite of his hosting autonomy. He seizes absolute control of the interaction's props. The loud, deliberate placement of the glass on the wooden table acts as an auditory punctuation mark, a microscopic assertion of power that shatters the quiet tension of the farmhouse. Landa methodically removes every variable from the room, tightening the claustrophobic grip of the spatial blocking. By explicitly pointing out that he left his men outdoors, he frames the women's dismissal as a reciprocal courtesy. This forces LaPadite to voluntarily isolate himself with his predator, stripping away his familial shield. The tension escalates from a stage of instability to acute vulnerability.
Je vous demande la permission de passer à l'anglais pour le reste de la conversation.
The transition to English is a masterstroke of theatrical manipulation. Later revealed to be fluent in French, Landa's claim of inadequacy is a calculated lie designed to obscure his true motive, ensuring the hidden Jewish family beneath the floorboards cannot understand the impending trap. By framing it as a polite request to avoid embarrassment, he once again exploits the social contract, forcing LaPadite to consent to his own disadvantage. This linguistic shift isolates the prey beneath the floor, cutting them off from the narrative flow.
Are you aware of the job I've been ordered to carry out in France?
Yes.
Please tell me what you've heard.
Landa forces LaPadite to articulate the stakes out loud, breaking the polite consensus they had previously established. By making the farmer say the words, Landa shifts the psychological burden onto his victim. It is a dominant display of control. He makes LaPadite speak his own death sentence.
That the Führer has put you in charge of rounding up the Jews left in France.
The Führer couldn't have said it better himself.
Landa's cheerful response, juxtaposed with the horrific reality of his job, highlights the dissonance of his character, a monster who views genocide as a bureaucratic puzzle to be solved with a smile. LaPadite attempts to use the front of previous German clearance to build a conversational wall. Landa instantly dismantles it by normalizing his presence as mere administrative redundancy. By referring to his genocide as an enterprise under new management, he minimizes the existential threat, offering LaPadite a false promise of safety. The phrase, "close the file on your family," is a psychological lure, dangling the illusion of survival in exchange for compliance. As Landa introduces hard data, names and facts, he narrows the scope of the interrogation, tightening the psychological noose.
Would it disturb you if I smoked my pipe?
LaPadite's request to smoke his pipe is a micro-action of self-soothing, an attempt to project calm, expressive coherence while his internal anxiety spikes. Landa's permission reinforces the grotesque parody of a polite house call. The pipe acts as a physical anchor for LaPadite, a prop he uses to maintain his rapidly deteriorating mask.
Facts can be so misleading, where rumors, true or false, are often revealing.
Landa dismisses facts in favor of rumors to destabilize LaPadite's logical defenses. By forcing LaPadite to construct a hypothetical narrative, the escape to Spain, Landa is testing the farmer's ability to lie under pressure. LaPadite carefully distances himself from the Dreyfuses, classifying them as mere community members. This is an act of dramaturgical discipline, an attempt to sever any emotional ties that Landa could exploit as leverage. Landa uses rapid-fire interruptions to prevent LaPadite from finding a comfortable rhythm. By demanding highly specific details, like the exact ages of Bob, Amos, and Shoshana, Landa is gathering forensic evidence to ensure he leaves no survivors. The agonizing tragedy of the scene is that LaPadite, while attempting to cooperate to save his family, is unwittingly providing Landa with the exact inventory he needs for his massacre. The request for a second glass of milk signals a false resolution, momentarily easing the tension before Landa violently pulls the rubber band back again. He forces LaPadite to say the name the Jew Hunter, stripping away the polite veneer of Colonel Landa. This is the psychological pivot point of the scene. The polite investigator vanishes, and the apex predator formally introduces himself to the room.
I can think like a Jew, where they can only think like a German.
Landa's monologue transitions from an interrogation into a theatrical villain's manifesto. His vocal delivery shifts from probing to lecturing. By embracing the moniker the Jew Hunter, he removes any illusion of morality. The animalistic comparisons serve to dehumanize his targets, a classic psychological tactic to justify extreme violence. Landa's philosophy is deeply cynical. He separates himself from the standard hawk-like German soldier, taking pride in his empathetic ability to think like his prey in order to destroy them. Landa actively dismantles societal prejudice, only to rebuild it as an inescapable law of nature.
I propose to you, any disease a rat could spread, a squirrel could equally carry.
By forcing LaPadite into a logical corner regarding rats and squirrels, Landa proves that human hatred is irrational, instinctual, and inevitable. This Socratic dialogue traps LaPadite in a philosophical maze. Landa is not just looking for Jews. He is dissecting the psychological conditioning of the man hiding them, proving that nowhere is truly safe. The mention of offering a rat a saucer of your delicious milk is a grotesque callback to Landa's own beverage choice. He subtly equates himself to the homeowner and the hidden family to the vermin. Landa's assertion that LaPadite acts on repulsive instinct rather than logic mirrors the underlying terror of the occupation. The rules of civilized society have been replaced by a primal, irrational food chain. Landa reveals the core mechanic of his suspense.
Because I'm aware what tremendous feats human beings are capable of once they abandon dignity.
He knows exactly how desperate people act. He maps out the physical geography of the farm, the barn, the attic, the cellar, systematically eliminating every logical hiding place until only the illogical remains. The phrase abandon dignity is the crucial dagger. Landa understands that survival necessitates degradation. The bomb under the table is no longer a secret. Landa is explicitly telling LaPadite that he has already solved the puzzle. The visual revelation of Landa's massive calabash pipe is the ultimate prop-based power move. It dwarfs LaPadite's modest pipe, visually solidifying Landa's intellectual and physical dominance over the space. The facade of polite conversation drops entirely, replaced by cold, transactional extortion.
That I must have my men enter your home and conduct a thorough search before I can officially cross your family's name off my list.
Landa threatens the immediate destruction of the farmhouse through a thorough search, pairing it with the absolute promise of eternal immunity if LaPadite complies. The rapid succession of Landa's final questions leaves no room for evasion.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
Yes.
You're sheltering them underneath your floorboards, aren't you?
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
The physical act of LaPadite pointing to the floorboards is the ultimate climax of tension, the exact moment the metaphorical bomb detonates. The psychological tension here reaches its absolute, suffocating apex. Landa explicitly confirms the linguistic isolation of the Dreyfus family hiding below.
Monsieur LaPadite,
By weaponizing the English language earlier, he didn't just obscure his interrogation, he completely stripped the victims of their sensory awareness. The metaphorical bomb is now fully armed, and LaPadite's single-word surrender is the auditory equivalent of a man giving up his soul. This is an act of profound dramaturgical cruelty. Landa is not satisfied with merely extracting the location of the Jewish family. He forces the man who sheltered them to become an active, compliant co-star in their execution. Landa's microchoice to frame this betrayal as a masquerade highlights his terrifying pathology. He views the grim mechanics of genocide as a theatrical production he is directing. The sudden return to the French language acts as the match striking the fuse.
Je vous remercie pour le lait, pour votre hospitalité.
Landa seamlessly resumes the physical mask of the gracious, departing guest, methodically addressing each member of the household to maximize the agonizing weight of the silence. The visual juxtaposition in this moment is sickening. Polite societal farewells are spoken aloud, while heavily armed soldiers silently file into the room, pointing their fingers and aiming their machine guns directly at the floorboards. The horror stems directly from this dissonance, the auditory illusion of safety masking the inescapable reality of slaughter. When the soldiers tear through the floorboards, Hitchcock's bomb finally detonates, shattering the scene's unbearable stillness with a deafening, hyper-violent catharsis. The camera abruptly shifts from psychological warfare to visceral destruction. Yet, when Shoshana miraculously emerges from the splintered wood, Landa's immediate command for his men to freeze is a micro-action that reasserts his absolute dominance over the chaos. He halts the execution squad because the surviving prey now belongs exclusively to him. The scene concludes with the ultimate exertion of a predator's god complex. The visual framing isolates Landa in the doorway, his Luger raised and the hammer cocked, while Shoshana sprints helplessly toward the tree line. The psychological suspense hangs on the pull of the trigger, but the shot never comes. The choice to lower his weapon is not born of sudden mercy. It is a calculated exertion of power. By screaming his chilling farewell into the French countryside, Landa proves that the kill itself is secondary to the thrill of the hunt. He allows the rat to run, ensuring the masquerade will continue. The true impact of this scene lies in its masterful subversion of traditional conflict. It actively trains the audience to look beyond the obvious threat of a military uniform or a loaded weapon, forcing them to focus instead on the microscopic shifts in posture, the deliberate pacing of a spoken syllable, and the suffocating constraints of spatial blocking. But it is also evolved by making the victim actively participate in lighting the fuse. LaPadite's desperate, agonizing attempts to maintain the societal mask of a gracious host only serve to tighten the noose around the family hidden beneath his boots. Ultimately, the enduring brilliance of this sequence rests in its excruciating patience. It stretches the rubber band of tension to its absolute breaking point, forcing the viewer to endure every torturous second of Landa's theatrical masquerade. When the violence finally erupts through the wooden floorboards, it delivers a horrifying catharsis that fundamentally redefines the modern cinematic villain. The scene leaves the audience with the chilling realization that the greatest monsters do not roar or kick down doors. They politely ask to sit at your table, drink your milk, and smile while they dismantle your world.